There's a definitive law review article written on this. It's roughly 100 pages, written by Michael Ferris, fully footnoted. He's been through all the histories, all the commissions. I have the entire history of the ratification of the United States Constitution sitting on my library shelf back there. I've read all the ratification debates. There's no objection to the process used. Nobody's talking about a runaway convention in 1787 or 1789 by the time of ratification. This is something, Robert, that was invented later and primarily invented by the radical left in America to prevent folks like us from using the Constitution to save the Constitution. So I can provide you with all those citations. You don't have to believe me. All that stuff is on our website. 1787 was not a runaway convention. And I would say this, and this is really important. We need to remember who those men in convention were. And I think all of us would say that we broadly revere them as some of the wisest people in the country's history. More importantly, some of the most honorable. Not all of them. They're human beings. They're sinners. They're flawed. But some of the most honorable. At that time in American history, if somebody said something that was a challenge to your honor, then in most states, you had the absolute right to challenge them to a duel. I mean, we all know the Hamilton-Burr duel was over matters of honor.
Sure.
You could kill somebody for accusing you of not living up to your duty. Now, imagine George Washington presiding as president of the convention. Imagine Madison and Adams and all these men sitting in convention, and they all just say, you know what? We know we have limitations, but we're just going to blow all that stuff off. It's a slander on the founders and the framers. I'll spend the rest of my life defending them from that slander.
Wow. Mark, why do you think? Okay, we know that the radical left wants to destroy everything that we have, right? Let me not be hyperbolic, okay? They want to destroy our foundations. They don't like our rights, our liberties, our duties or responsibilities. So why do you think there is this push? If they want to destroy the Constitution and institutions and foundations anyway, why do you think there's this opposition from leftist groups like Soros or, other sort of opponents?
Well, so I'm going to back up and I'm going to merge. So I answered half of Robert's question, and then I'm going to merge the answers to these two questions if I could.
Yeah.
So the idea of a runaway convention really comes into the mainstream of the American lexicon post Roe versus Wade, 1973. What you start to see is a bunch of states rise up and propose Article 5 applications, pass applications for a convention to overturn Roe versus Wade. And so ultimately they get to 20 states, right where we're at right now. It's a pretty serious movement. And at some point in the early 80s, Chief Justice Warren Burger and Phyllis Schlafly from Eagle Forum have a written exchange. And Schlafly asks Burger, you might recognize that name because he signed Roe versus Wade, what do you think of the idea of a convention that people are pushing? And what do you think he's going to say? That's the seminal decision of his career. He says, we might have a runaway convention and lose our beloved Constitution. Again, this is all public record. This is not Mark just saying this stuff. And immediately, law professors at Harvard and Yale write articles about the runaway convention. This is not something that's been a conservative idea. It's not something that's been an idea at all in the American body politic. It is invented specifically by the radical left to prevent the right from using a convention of states. And there is a through line through American history since the late 1970s, early 1980s of being against a convention of states. And in fact, about 5 years ago on Good Friday, a group led by Common Cause and Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, both George Soros funded groups, got together, and they now have a coalition of over 250 leftist groups that have signed a press release against the idea of a convention of states. And this is the baddies. This is the worst of the worst. It's Planned Parenthood. It's La Raza. It's MoveOn.org. It's Daily Cause. It's the Socialist Party of America. Like every nasty left-wing, America-hating, baby-killing group you could think of has signed on to this press release. And so this is what stuns me when conservatives say, well, conservatives are worried about this. Well, there are some on the edges of the conservative movement that are, but they've been duped by the radical left in America. The radical left is entirely united against this. I can tell you, for example, Russ Feingold back in October wrote a book against this, attacking this, saying exactly what we're doing, trying to limit the administrative state, trying to create a smaller government. He just said it's all a terrible, horrible idea. Hillary Clinton spoke out against it. Howard Dean spoke out against it. The left is unanimous in its condemnation. And if they thought it could be a runaway convention and they could get control of that and destroy the Constitution, clearly they would be supporting the idea.